Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to give it a couple moments so individuals can get logged on and then we will get started. Very excited to have you with us this morning. Hope everybody is feeling well, doing well. An extended thank you to all of the veterans. If there are any veterans joining us online this morning, thank you for your service. I know yesterday was Veterans Day, but we show gratitude every day. So welcome, 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 welcome. We are very excited to have you with us all this morning. I want to officially welcome everyone to Lego Your Limits. We're going to build accountability today, brick by brick. I am looking forward to spending time with you, engaging with you. We will be utilizing our chat functions today. So please make sure you have access to chat and engage. And we welcome your questions and insights. Feel free to drop them in and let us know, where you're logged in from. We're just looking forward to an engaging conversation today around building accountability. So I am your facilitator today. My name is RoMaine KJ Wise. Pronouns are she, her. I am a senior consultant with Exude Human Capital. And for those that don't know, Exude Human Capital is a consulting firm based out of Philadelphia. We were founded back in 2006, and we have been on this mission to transform organizations by connecting all of the dots between HR, leadership development, inclusion, and belonging. We are a dynamic group of individuals who pride ourselves on delivering dynamic HR solutions. So we do everything from outsourcing to compensation strategy, strategic advisory, organizational and cultural assessments, DEIB advisory, and training. We kind of understand that people are the cornerstone of what makes organizations successful. So we are dedicated to helping organizations, big, small, and everything in between, lift up their people, their mission, and their bottom line. So that's who we are as a group. I am a senior consultant with Exude. I've been with them now for almost 5 years, and I work at the intersectionality of all of those key areas where we operate. So I have the pleasure of partnering with clients and partners and engaging in various um, activities where human resources is concerned. I have about 20 plus years of progressive HR experience, and I absolutely love what I do. So I am excited today to bridge two of my passions together in a very unique way to talk about accountability and how we leverage it in the workplace. So you're probably thinking, Ro, how did we land at Legos? Well, I am a Lego enthusiast. These are actual pictures of the very first set of Legos that I ever built. It's a Mickey and Minnie set. So I'm also a Disney enthusiast, but that's more details for another webinar at another time. But when you think about Legos, most of us kind of picture a box full of colorful pieces and endless possibilities. But here's the thing I need you all to consider. Until those pieces are all connected, they're all just potential. There's the possibility that they can become something. It's not until, I step in with intention and sit down and focus and design and the patience, because doing Legos takes a lot of patience, that it becomes something strong, purposeful, and lasting. The same is true for leadership. Every day in your workplaces, they're full of vibrant, brilliant pieces of things. It could be ideas, it could be people, it could be projects, it could be goals. But without a clear blueprint, be it effective communication, shared accountability, which we're really going to talk about today, the pieces don't click. They kind of sit disconnected, waiting for direction and connection. So accountability is the architecture that holds all of those pieces together. It's what turns individual effort into collective success. It's what makes trust visible, goals measurable, and culture durable. So accountability is a major component of what creates productivity in the workplace where we work. And that's why we're exploring it today, how to build accountability literally brick by brick. I'm going to use the Lego building as our metaphor because it's visual, it's tangible, it's simple, but it's not easy. Same can be said about leadership. It really requires attention to detail, patience, and follow through. So today you'll see that leadership isn't about stacking as much as you can, but it's really about designing with purpose. It's about ensuring that every piece has a place and making sure that your team can see how their piece connects to the whole. So, as we move through this session, think of yourself today as both the architect and the builder. You are designing structure, connection, and trust because in leadership, just as with Legos, every brick counts. All right. So let's talk about our learning objectives today. Our goal today is to kind of reimagine leadership from an architectural blueprint of culture and performance, and we'll talk about that. How to identify and assess accountability gaps that kind of undermine team success, how to spot things early and get ahead of things before they become crisis situations. And then I'm going to give you a practical framework that will help you align vision, ownership, trust, and that will help transform all of those loose pieces into a strong, resilient structure. So that's what we're going to talk about in our time together today. Um, I want to open up our chat, and I see that some of you have already leaned into the chat this morning, but I want you to insert when you hear or see the word accountability, what is the first word or feeling that comes to mind? And if you can just drop some of your comments in the chat so we can kind of gauge what people are experiencing when it comes to accountability, that would be great. So we have ownership of actions, responsibility, ownership. This would be a great sound word cloud. Ownership would be very large in the middle. Seeing ownership. Ownership. Okay, we're gonna ride the theme of ownership. I like it. Give it a couple more seconds. Accountability. What does it mean uh, to you when you hear or see it? Oh, I see partnership. It's a good word. Any other ones coming through? Trust. Admitting mistakes. Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. These are phenomenal. No excuses. And ownership. I'm here for the ownership. Mutual, in partnership with others. Okay. So you all have had reactions to the word accountability. And I want to paint a picture of kind of where we are current state when we think about accountability. So I did some research and got some statistics because I like numbers. So, what we found in recent studies, a recent Gallup study showed that only 31% of US employees were engaged in 2004. So, on a scale of being engaged, only 31%, that's less than a third of people, felt engaged in their workforce. 17% identified as being actively disengaged. So the challenge showed up in areas centered around communication, and significantly just the cost of poor communication. This number baffled me that it can cost an organization somewhere between $10,000 and $55,000 per employee per year in lost productivity. And this was from the High Five Strengths Test. This is where that information and data came from. And when we look at it, a lot of the challenge with communication is that it was not transparent, it wasn't consistent, there was a lack of follow through. But what happens was 64% of business leaders and 55% of knowledge workers say effective communication is the top driver of productivity. So let's pause there for a second. If we're not communicating efficiently, we are directly impacting our bottom line, our revenue, our outcomes, because people are unclear what expectations look like. They're not sure whose role is what. And when we look at accountability and conversations, a lot of times we're seeing the 2024 accountability research shows that core talent practices sit at only if you did it level, meaning there's minimal visibility, there's minimal consequences. That means that critical coaching, feedback, and follow through often just aren't happening. People are not having the conversations. We're not having those constructive feedback conversations. And what I've gauged in a lot of my recent engagement with clients and partners of Exude is people just don't know how to have those conversations. There is this regard for people's feelings, which we definitely want to pay attention to in the workplace, but there is a way to have conversations around expectation, accountability, ownership of roles, and making sure people clearly understand their span of control and how to navigate if things deviate or don't go as planned, how to get support and reaction. So, we're going to talk about all of that today, but I wanted to paint the picture for you all. And then understanding how all of this impacts psychological safety and performance. So, psychological safety remains one of the strongest predictors of high performing teams. People who feel safe in their work environments to challenge the norms, to ask the questions, to make mistakes, to learn, and to be their true selves are highly more productive and have a lower turnover rate. This is statistically shown, so it's definitely going to impact performance and how organizations show up. So I wanted to kind of give you current state and the impact that it has on the workforce and why accountability is so important in what we all do in our individual organizations. So let's look at what I call blueprint thinking. So thinking about yourself less as a task manager, but more of an architect, more of a builder. Leadership isn't just about the job title, it's about designing transformation. Architects don't pick paint colors. They shape the foundation, the wiring, the frame. So in the workplace, our blueprints are built on three things: the vision, the communication, and the culture. So what happens is if you don't draw it, your team can't build it. So if your blueprint is fuzzy, what happens is people improvise. They make it up as they go. They do what they think they should be doing. And sometimes that's not the strategic plan or the strategic goal that the organization has. And that's where the cracks and the disconnects start to form and things become unstable. So when we look at these three areas, if you look at vision, vision is the drawing. It is a clear picture of where the team or the organization is heading. It is the path that we're going to take. Why is vision so important? It's important because without it, people will make it up as they go. And now we're taking everybody's individual experience or individual interpretations of what they think the vision is, and we're creating more work for ourselves and double work and misalignment. So, vision gives direction, it gives purpose, it gives lanes that people need to follow. So, what happens is when you look at vision, it's going to clearly define what success looks like, but it's also going to help people identify why their contribution matters. How does my individual brick impact the overall success of the organization. That's what vision does. This is where people can align from the individual contributor all the way up to the C-suite, that what their actions and what they're building on a daily basis is directly going to impact how well the organization succeeds, how well the team succeeds. When we think about communication, these are the instructions. This is kind of the manual of how you want people to do things. The way a leader translates the vision in actions will ensure that every builder knows their role. Every department understands their tasks and responsibilities. Every employee or team member understands their role and their function and their responsibilities. The great thing is, you can have a great blueprint, but if people can't access it or can't see it, it's not going to be impactful. So communication closes the gaps between intention and execution. It keeps everything very clear. And communication should be clear, it should be consistent, and it should have follow through and follow up. So you want to make sure that even with communication, the consistency, the messaging, all of that is important, but I also challenge you all to consider the methods of which you are communicating. Anyone who has been on a webinar with me previously knows that I am a big advocate for making sure that we identify areas of opportunity for individuals with neurodiversity in the workplace. That means that communication may not always need to be all in writing. Is there a way to take the long emails and turn them into short videos or something audible for people to hear, so that we all who process information differently still have full access to the information that is being shared, and it doesn't get lost in translation or interpretation because I am processing it differently. The last piece is the culture. We talk about culture all the time. Culture is the environment. It's kind of how we get the work done. The culture of an organization is going to determine how safe, how supported, and how motivated people are to build and do their work. How safe do they feel to make the connections? Why does the culture matter? Because even with the best vision and the clearest instruction, if there is a toxic or inconsistent environment, it will not foster the success that you're looking for. Culture sustains accountability. I'll repeat that. Culture sustains accountability, because when we create a space where people kind of know their lane, understand their lane, have clear expectations, that there's follow through on actions, and then there are constructive conversations that happen when necessary, but also recognition that happens when things go well, that creates the culture of, okay, I can do this, I can be supportive, I can execute the way that I need to. So the thing is, the culture is going to shape the environment. This is where we model the behaviors, the values, the things that reinforce the behaviors that we want to see, and make accountability a part of how we do things. So it's not just the what we do, accountability adds a level of competency of how we do it. So together, when you put all three of these together, you have the dynamic infrastructure that's necessary to build something stable, long lasting, and that is durable. What happens when one of these pieces go away? If vision without communication will equate to confusion. If you have communication without culture, then you have compliance, not commitment. And then culture without vision is activity without direction, or as my mother would call it, just busyness. Okay, so let's take a moment of reflection. I want you to think about this, and feel free to put your comments in the chat. What part or which part of the leadership blueprint, is it vision, communication, or culture, is hardest to sustain in your workplace right now, and why? What are you seeing as a challenge? Is it that the vision is unclear? Is it that the culture is unclear? Is it that communication is inconsistent or unclear? What is the challenge? And I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing a few of you saying culture, um, vision, and communication of the same communication, largely because we are completely remote. That is a challenge for remote teams. And I thank you for bringing that up. So in thinking about the architecture or the architect mindset of a leader, communication has to be developed a little differently for the remote team. How do you cadence conversations? How do you make sure people have access to information? Where are things housed? How do people retrieve information? What is the flow for asking questions? Does everybody have a clear understanding of kind of what the communication norms even are? How do we handle conflict? How do we handle disengagement? What is it that we are doing in terms of communication with our remote teams? And that might be a conversation that we can have in detail on another webinar. Um, it's not the culture It's not that culture is not clear. It is the push to change the culture and the pushback that we get. So a lot of times, especially right now in organizations, there's a lot of transformation that's happening. And transformation is just another word for change. And people are not always comfortable with change. So in this design, it's creating space for people to understand what's changing, how it individually affects them, and then thinking about how to help them navigate from what was to what is, but giving them some kind of level of control into the new. So connecting what used to be to what was. If it's a new system, if it's a new approach to cross collaborations with departments, how do I need to pivot what I was doing originally to this new format? What's the new process? What's the new activity? But giving them the connection of what was to what is really going to help people start to move forward. Because what happens is, and I've seen this in a lot of the engagements that I've worked on over the years, people get stuck in what they're comfortable with and won't move forward because one, there's a fear of failure. Two, they're unsure and not sure where they fit in the new span or the new scope of what the new process or system may look like. So they want to make sure that they can still be seen as valuable. So if I can only hold on to what was, I'm still of value in some way, although it's creating counterproductive activities because the rest of the team is trying to move forward. So with change in culture, you want to make sure that you're creating space for individuals to have the conversation and to understand the connections that are moving forward. Okay. Thank you all for those moments of reflections. Let's look at brick by brick accountability, how to spot the gaps. A lot of times, what we focus on are the things that are easy to spot. The visible gaps in the work that we do can show up in things like missed deadlines, a heightened level of turnover, people kind of being siloed in what they do. But what happens is when we think about accountability, it's like the mortar between bricks. It holds everything together. When it's strong, the structure stands. When it's weak, it will crumble. The visible gaps are the ones that you can kind of see and identify easily. It's those invisible gaps is where they put the small like hairline fractures in teams and dynamics, and things don't implode all at once, but they start to break down over time. Those invisible gaps can be more costly. They can really have a direct impact on culture, and those show up as things like lack of psychological safety, some, passive aggressive behaviors. We all know the P and A word, the passive aggressive behaviors, and how they show up. A lot of people are unclear in their role and their expectations. How many of you, and feel free to, give a reaction or raise your hand or comment in the chat, have heard people go, "Oh, I didn't know that was my job. Oh, I thought that was their role. I thought that was her responsibility or their responsibility." People who are avoiding conversations because they don't want to be faced with conflict. Here's my 10-second pause on conflict. Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict can be very healthy when we manage it appropriately, but we have to have the tools, the skills, and the resources to do that. We can have constructive conversations and disagree and have varying perspectives. Conflict creates a space for us to be able to see things differently, possibly learn something new, and come up and do something innovative together. So invisible gaps are really impactful to the team. So making sure that we get in front of the psychological safety challenges that are in the workplace, really ask the questions to the teams to understand what it is that they're experiencing, kind of understand this passive aggressive behaviors. What are people not saying? Kind of understanding body language, paying attention to how people engage in meetings, be it virtually or in person. Just really thinking about psychological safety and how we engage with one another. There's a question in the comment that says, is psychological safety equivalent to trust? It is definitely a component of trust. For people to feel safe in the work environment, they have to trust that their colleagues and their leaders have their best intent. And what happens is when there is a breakdown of trust, there is a significant amount of work that may need to go into rebuilding that trust. And trust can show up in two different forms. It can show up from a people perspective or a personal aspect, and the people that we engage with. Do you trust the colleague that's sitting across from you or the person on the other side of the screen? But it can also be a trust in the operations of it all. Can I trust you to do the work that you're supposed to do? If I can't trust you, what is the challenge? What is the breakdown? What is the communication? How do we address it? Because if I am reliant on you for information to get my job done and I can't trust you with that, then we need to have a conversation and figure out what's going on. And it's not me coming at the person, it's just to clarify if there's additional resources or support that may be necessary and to reimagine how we do the work. So, my recommendation for you is to identify the gaps early. Get ahead of it. Be proactive. So, is there a pattern of certain behaviors that you're seeing? When I tell and advise, I won't say I tell, when I advise leaders to kind of be proactive and assess kind of what's happening on their team, I ask them to pay attention to the voices that they don't hear. Who are the silent people? Who are not saying anything? Check in with them. Ask clarifying questions. Feel free to ask your team, what is your understanding of your role in this project and the outcome? What do you think of the project plan? Are standards being applied evenly? Are we consistently enforcing and holding people accountable, or does it vary based on who we ask? Are we giving leniency for people who've been at the organization longer? Are we more stringent on new hires, feeling like they have to prove themselves? Feel free, these are all introspective reflection questions that I want you to kind of ponder as we think about this. Once you've identified the gaps, you want to catch it before it spreads because maybe we can repair it. Maybe it's something that doesn't have to fester or touch other areas of the organization if we can just kind of get to the bottom of it. Think about it. Pulse questions in meetings are my absolute favorite, especially when you have a collaboration with the team. Asking questions like, okay, who owns this? What will success look like next week? And this way you're putting a boundary of time on it so it's not an off a lofty goal off the mark. It's kind of keeping people in constraint so things are actionable and sustainable. And what is one risk that we may need to anticipate? What could possibly be a problem that we're coming up against that we can possibly get in front of? What are we thinking about? I would also encourage, especially for those that are on hybrid teams, normalize micro connections. Do a quick 5-10 minute check-in. How are things? How is your day going today? What are you working on? Do you need any support? What are your priorities? This way, you can make sure things stay aligned and people understand what their role and responsibilities are. The last piece is sharing feedback on gaps. So once we've identified them, um, the position the position to take is kind of giving the impact of when things don't happen, not blaming. So blaming kind of, makes the person feel offended or feel defensive. But if you can understand the impact by missing the deadline or not sharing the information and what it's having, how it's impacting other people on the team, then you're more inclined to get people to be aware of the behavior. Because sometimes people will continue to do the thing that they know to do because they haven't been given the feedback. So you have to be able to share the feedback on where you've identified gaps in the accountability. Saying things to peers or colleagues, making accountability mutual. Let's agree that we're going to do this and circle back with each other in 2 days. Does Thursday work for you? What's the time so we can check in? I have found that I am most successful when I have to check back in with a client, with a colleague at a set date and time. Because if I don't put a deadline on it, I listen, this is me having a transparent moment with you all. I feel safe with you all. I have a tendency to procrastinate. It is a time management challenge that I own and that I am working on. But if I know someone is counting on me to do something, I am much more intentional to make sure that I deliver because I don't want my delayed response to impact them negatively. So think about that. So there are three questions that you can ask yourselves. Um, think about it. Is there work that's bouncing around because there's no clear ownership on some of your teams? Where do people vent sideways instead of speaking up directly? Are they commiserating with each other but not coming to you as their leader to say, hey, this is a challenge area? Are they grumbling in the background versus coming up to have conversation? So accountability can really help rectify a lot of the things because it's not just the work. It's also accountability in how we behave. Are we allowing for behaviors that are counterproductive to the cultures we're designing to continue to fester? Are we advising people or making them aware of the impact that they're having on colleagues, even if that's not their clear intention? I challenge you to spot the gaps early, address them, and share the feedback on what you've designed. Here's my 3-step framework for how to action accountability. The first step is a self-audit. What are you modeling as a leader? How are you showing up? Can you say that you meet your deadlines? Do you follow through on what you promise? These are questions that you kind of have to take a self-reflection moment in and saying, is my team modeling the behavior or the example I'm setting, or am I asking them to do something in verbal direction that I am not doing myself? So taking the self-audit of what I'm modeling is really going to be helpful. So as one of the takeaways from today, and you'll see the link in the chat, there is a self-assessment for accountability that we have offered to you as a takeaway for you to assess 5 different areas or dimensions that are going to impact your accountability and where there is opportunity to be intentional about making one change in how you do things. Um, so that is in the chat and it will also be sent out as a attachment after the webinar. The second step is team alignment. This is where are all the loose pieces? Loose pieces show up when people aren't clear who owns what. Are deadlines fuzzy? Are we giving clear expectations, or are we suggesting that people do things? I've recently had some encounters with partners and leaders who make suggestions to their team. They're not clear directives, but they suggest that they have conversations with their team members. They suggest that they coach individuals who are having performance challenges. It's not a clear, this is the expectation. It's a suggestion. You can take it or you cannot take it. So let's be mindful if we're not setting clear expectations, that can leave room for fuzziness, if you will, and disconnection in the pieces. So people what team misalignment may look like, or signs that you have loose pieces in your team, is multiple people assuming that someone else owns a task. So people are not sure who owns it. Silence in meetings when decisions are made, people not sitting, speaking up, or asking questions. And sometimes it can show up when people are now crossing into other people's lanes and roles and responsibilities, and it leads to friction. It leads to conflict, and it leads to tension. So it's really kind of getting in front of your team alignment to make sure everyone has clear roles, responsibilities, and identifying where the loose pieces are. Very simply put, if you can name it, you can frame it. So if you can identify where the breakdown is, you can quickly find a remedy to make the connections happen. The last one is what we call systems strengthening. What processes snap us together? So, what are the things that can make the team work better together? Because there is a strong structure, it's really held together um, through systems, process. It's not really good to rely on memory or good intentions. We all have a lot going on in our heads. We're all dealing with a lot in the workplace and external to the workplace. So our brain only has so much capacity to retain information. I stopped trying to remember things. If I don't write it down, I am now an iPhone user. I talk to Siri all day. Set a reminder to do this in 30 minutes. Set a reminder to do this. Set a reminder to call things back. I don't trust my memory to retain all the things that it needs to. So, what are some of the things that you can do to strengthen the systems, the process, making sure that there are clear project trackers with owners and dates? Doing meeting recaps at the end of conversations or collaborations with your team to make sure people understand action items, who owns what, and when the next deliverable is expected. Um, Closing out meetings and making it become the norm to talk about next steps and naming who has what responsibilities. Systems are the connectors. They make sure that no piece is left dangling. People should not leave team meetings unsure of what's happening next. And if there is space, this is my absolute favorite, make sure that there's a space for people to come back and ask questions, and have a feedback loop if you have individuals who are not comfortable talking up front or out loud. Okay. Um, I want us to take our last few moments together and think about building your brick. Build your brick. If accountability is the structure, what is one thing or one brick that you can put in place this week to strengthen it? Is it taking the framework and doing a self-audit? Am I assessing how I'm showing up? And please feel free to put your insight in the chat. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat as well. But what is one thing you can do where accountability is concerned? Is it a communication update? Is it having individual meetings with people on your team? Is it making sure expectations are clear or doing a check-in with those on your team? What is one thing, one brick that you can put in place this week that is going to strengthen accountability on your team? From an individual standpoint, working at Exude, in terms of accountability, I have a weekly check-in with our managing partner, Allison. And we go through all of the engagements, where we are with projects, resources that may be needed. And we really have a thorough conversation about what's going on. I know every Friday at 9 a.m., we're going to have that conversation. So I have to be deliberate in making sure that I have deliverables that are necessary or that I can proactively communicate to her when things are not aligning the way that I anticipated, and even get her insight on how to pivot, how to engage with clients to get the support that's necessary. Um, I love our weekly check-ins too. I'm glad you're on. The I've seen some of the things, the self-audit and check-ins with team members about communication. So these are some of the bricks that people are putting into place. Communicate with my staff, my expectations around space for venting. True. I think it is very important that as we navigate all of the things that are externally happening in the world around us, accountability is going to be the thing that keeps us grounded. It gives stability. It gives clear direction. This is the expectation that I have of you. Now, accountability, when executed right, can also create autonomy, because now you know what you're accountable for, and I'm going to afford you the bandwidth and the space to work in the way that is most conducive for you. But there has to be that communication, that follow through, that follow up to make sure that everybody is staying on track. Okay. So, in terms of takeaways today, I want you to think and hold on to this architecture mindset. You are not just task managers, you are builders, you are people. Vision, communication, and culture are going to be the blueprint of your team success. If the blueprint is not clear, the build won't be either. One thing I've learned about Legos is if you miss a step and try to do what you think is the next appropriate step, you can totally knock off the balance of your build. I built the Disney castle. It was my largest build to date. It was over, I think, like 4,000 pieces. And I misaligned the second story and I went to lift it and the whole thing toppled over and I had to start back. But the great thing is, because there was clear communication and guidance, all Legos come with visual aids, and there are also videos that you can watch to help you put the pieces together. I had clear instructions on what I needed to do next so that I could reset. Does your team have the clear instructions that even if there is a misstep, that they can reset themselves and get back to the task or project at hand and get back on track? Accountability holds everything together. It's the mortar between bricks. It is the things that make things connect. It's the snapping that happens. And without it, the strongest plans will collapse. There has to be ownership. There needs to be partnership. There needs to be clear expectations so people can deliver. And if people are not delivering, as leaders, I challenge us to go back and assess why. Ask the clarifying questions. Ask them what their understanding of their role is within the project or within the span of the work. Make sure that gaps that show up both visibly and invisibly are addressed in a timely manner. Spot them early and address them quickly. Make sure that they don't linger, because what happens is the longer you let things linger, it becomes a learned behavior and that becomes the new norm. So we want to make sure that we get in front of it. Um, Loose pieces to strong structure. Take the framework, do the self-assessment, do the self-audit. What are you modeling? And be okay with if you identify areas that may not be your strongest, and that could be reflective of how the team is showing up. And it's okay. We're all learning and growing together, and there's always opportunity to do better the next day. So take the self-audit, align the team, make sure you've identified where the loose pieces are, and then figure out how to use your process and systems to kind of help you snap back together. The big part is what I've learned with the Lego builds, every piece is important. Even the smallest of piece has a purpose. So you want to make sure that everyone feels connected to the overall blueprint of what it is that you're doing. It's not that any role is bigger or smaller. There may be a different level of accountability and ownership and risk, but everybody's contribution is value. So every brick that is on your team counts. And then make sure you build with intention. You know, leadership is legacies. They're not built in a day. It's a journey for all of us, but they are constructed through consistent and intentional actions. Strong leaders just don't stack bricks. They build foundations, they build stability, and they build things that can weather the brunt of all of the forces that may come internally and externally. Okay. I am excited to ask if there are any questions. Please feel free to put them in um, and the chat, and I will be happy to answer them. We invite you to connect. My email is in the chat. Feel free to reach out if you have follow-up questions. If you want to talk about Legos, if you want to see any of my builds, I'm always happy to share pictures. But I really want us to think about accountability, how it shows up, how we leverage it, and how we use it to create a culture of psychological safety with clear vision, with clear communication, so that everybody understands what they're bringing to the success of the organizations. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was insightful. I hope it was somewhat enjoyable. This was, we want to see the Disney castle. I will make sure we send out a picture of the Disney castle. I'll send it to our marketing team so that you can go out. I'll make sure you get a front and back view. But I thank you all for your level of engagement today. I hope this was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Have an amazing day.